Hi everyone, this is my Module 8 discussion video. The first question I chose was discuss the difference between informing and persuading. When are you most likely to want or need to inform or persuade? Why should you know the difference? The textbook defines informing as presenting the facts, whereas persuading is defined as acting as an advocate or making an argument. These definitions can be found on page 278. I think of it in a slightly different way. To me, informing is relaying information. For example, informing someone that there will be a change in how the company you work for is managed, or training a group on a new point of sale system. Persuading, on the other hand, is more trying to convince others to change or to do something differently than they have been. The best way I can compare the two is with the following example. You would use persuasion to convince a board of trustees to change how a company is run, but you would inform the employees of the changes being made. This also explains when you would want and or need to inform or persuade. It's important to know the difference because they are two very different forms of presenting and should be used at the correct time and place. The second question I chose was what are the differences between pathos and logos? While these aren't terms that you likely use in your day-to-day discourse, why or how might understanding them impact your ability to present information well? Pathos is defined as emotional appeal. Logos refers to the words of a presentation in the context of organizational structure and the supporting information. I've heard these terms used a lot in psychology and philosophy and a few communication classes that I've taken in the past. I feel that I've got a pretty firm grasp on the definitions and how to apply them. I think it's important to understand these terms because they're essential to many subjects and many subsections in communication specifically. We utilize these terms every day without realizing it sometimes. For example, the way our communications are organized, logos, changes with different situations. An example of this is writing an email to a supervisor would be organized differently than an email to a friend would be. As for pathos, we're almost always using emotion when communicating. Even when we don't notice, emotions show through when we communicate with others. I believe that understanding these terms and how they affect our communication skills is really important because knowing more about them can increase our skills and help us reflect on past speeches and presentations as well as enhance future ones. The third question I chose was, what is your overall approach to presenting, be it for class or work, and how much of the information in chapters 11 and 12 have you used, even if you haven't used the terminology of the text? So my overall approach to presenting things has really changed drastically over the years. For example, in middle school, I was always the kid that prepared reports and presentations at the last minute, which drove my parents insane. I was the type that would tell them I had a project due at 9 o'clock the night before it was due. I never really researched anything beforehand. I would usually just get up in front of the class and present, although this probably didn't help my fear of public speaking at the time. Probably made me more nervous. When I got to high school, I did everything that I could to get out of presenting things. I would skip class the day that I had a presentation, or I would pretend to be sick. That didn't work so well. Still ended up having to do it. When I got to my sophomore year, we had to put together a 10-minute presentation for English that was about a current world problem. I was terrified, but I planned ahead and managed to get it done on time and got a pretty high grade on it, so I was really proud of that. It helped with future presentations and speeches that I had to give. Obviously, there were several more throughout the rest of high school, and they continued in college. The most rewarding class that helped with my fear of public speaking was the argumentation and debate class at the Falls. We slowly built up to a 30-minute debate in front of the whole class at the end of the quarter. It was kind of nice to take it in small chunks rather than be thrown right into large speeches. I think it really helped me come out of my shell for public speaking. After reading these two chapters, I realized that I never really utilized much of the information from the textbook on this subject. I usually just did what I thought sounded good and went with it. I now know that it probably wasn't a smart idea, and I plan on using these tips for future presentations. That's all I've got. Thanks for listening.